There's not a man, woman, or child in Ireland that isn't scared of the Banshee. Stories handed down from family members terrified me as a child. Legend has it that there were 5 family names that had their own banshees: O'Grady, O'Neill, O'Brien, O'Connor, and Kavanagh. These happened to be the most popular surnames in Ireland. The luck of the Irish certainly wasn't smiling down on these family names, if folklore is to be believed. The Banshee roams the countryside and can be heard wailing when she predicts a death. The word Banshee translates to woman of the fairy mounds. She can appear in a number of guises: as a young beautiful woman, a stately matron, or as an ugly frightening hag. It was always the latter one that I imagined as a child, and now as an adult. She is usually dressed in a grey or white hooded cloak. While not always seen, her mourning cries can be heard, usually at night when someone is about to die. Those who claim to have seen her describe long hair, which she runs a comb through, similar to tearing the hair out in anguish. The Banshee is one of the more intimidating fairies. She is a fairy woman who appears at the sight of an imminent death in the middle of the night and lets out a chilling, high-pitched wail. As with all folklore stories and figures, she also appears in Scottish, Welsh, Norse, and even American folklore in many different forms, and doing many different death-related things. Occasionally, she is also known as the Crying Woman. The origin of the Banshee is really quite ordinary compared to the tales that surround her. In medieval times, during funerals, a woman would take on the role of a keener. Keeners sang sad songs called keenya, the Irish word for crying, at the graveside. There was a good business to be made as a keener, as families would pay very well for a talented one. The best known ones always attended the funerals of the biggest and most well known people, and were much sought after. As the more people mourning at a funeral, the greater the person was said to be. For the more powerful families, it was common belief that a fairy woman would come to keen at the grave. Fairies presumably being more talented singers than any human. The Irish phrase became anglicised to Banshee, and over the time the stories developed and morphed into what we know today. The fact that the keeners were paid in alcohol and often ended up as elderly alcoholic women that were banished from towns and villages also added to the myth. Originally, the Banshee appeared to people who were about to suffer a violent and painful death, such as murder. In later stories, she wailed outside their door at night, usually around wooded areas, but was rarely seen. Cynics and realists, who claim the story to be nothing more than an old wife's tale, say that the wails are actually just barn owls or vixens calling into the night. If you've ever heard either animal, they do sound remarkably similar to a woman screeching. Her cry seems to be the subject of much debate. In Leinster, it is said to be so shrill that it shatters glass. Further north in Tyrone, she sounds more like 2 boards being struck together, while in Kerry her call is low, pleasant singing. Whatever she sounds like, everyone agrees that she can be heard from a great distance. Some report hearing her cry for several nights in a row before death, while others say they just heard her the once on the night of the death. Her cry rises and falls and lasts for at least a few minutes. There have been alleged instances when the Banshee cries for the person who was in perfect health, but was found dead within a week from some freak accident. The majority of her visits are paid at night, with a small taking place before noon. The Banshee was usually thought to have been once a normal woman who enjoyed life, was incredibly beautiful, and radiated happiness. But some great sorrow overcame her at some point in her life, and she became a haggard old woman. She seemingly very wary of mortals, and would have disappeared at the first sight of any human activity. In fact, she didn't seem to enjoy the company of anyone, mortal or not, and travelled as a solitary fairy. When the banshees moved from place to place, witnesses have heard a fluttering sound similar to birds flying. When she disappeared, all that was left behind was a cloud of mist. There are several purported Banshee chairs around Ireland, wedge-shaped rocks where she would sit and cry for general misfortunes, if there was no death to be attended to, that is.